If you're just starting out in solar, you're probably completely lost as to basically where you start. Do you go for cold leads? Do you go for age leads? Do you go for inbound leads? Like, where do you basically start with all this stuff? So I've dealt with absolutely all of these lead types. I have done tens of thousands of cold calls. I've dabbled in tons of age leads, and I've also done a ton of inbound leads. Probably together, my business partner and I, he probably spent around $136,000 just on inbound leads this year. Um, just for me to basically call up and basically set appointments. So I can honestly say that I've dealt and dabbled in all of these leads almost like to the fullest extent. So I can basically give you guys the ins and outs, and I can tell you guys, what's good, what's not, how you're supposed to approach these leads, and how to basically maximize your results to basically make the most money possible with these leads. So let's start out with cold leads. Cold leads. So if you're just starting out, you'll probably think of starting out with cold leads. That's honestly the best way to start. But honestly, you're not going to get results with cold leads, and you're probably not getting results with cold leads right now because you're doing a lot of things that maybe aren't optimal, and you're just not maximizing your potential like on these cold calls. You're just basically wasting a lot of time and energy basically saying the wrong things when they say you should be saying the right things to be getting like really, really good results. And I'll basically give you guys, an example of how you guys can do this to basically maximize the ability to close deals from cold calls. But basically, cold leads, the cheapest lead source you could possibly get. So with cold leads, you can get cold leads almost for free, like if you really, really look hard enough. But honestly, like a lead list of cold leads, you can get 1,000 cold leads, and you're not going to be breaking their bank whatsoever. Honestly, if you have $100 in your bank account to spare, you can get a couple of thousand cold leads pretty easily. So let's get into the best way to basically go about, setting appointments up with cold leads, and how you basically set up good cold lead appointments. And the best way to basically set up cold lead appointments is to just be different. Be different in your tone. And then also your tone is supposed to be a lot more laid back, and you want to go in with what I call the non-solar approach. So I actually made a video. It was my last video on basically how to be different. You guys can check that out. That will help you guys out massively in basically understanding what to do with cold calling. But when it comes to cold calling, you're just going to want to go in on these cold calls with a super casual tone, super laid back, and you want to go in with like what I call the non-solar approach, which is basically calling up these customers and you're not mentioning solar at all within the first 5, even 10 minutes. Another thing on these cold calls, it's very important to be quite assertive. So for these other lead types, you don't need to be as aggressive. I think in terms of your approach with cold calling, you want to be quite aggressive, not in your tone and not to the customers, but in terms of your ability to handle objections. You're very, very on the attack. You're very, very much on the offensive, and you're kind of always thinking, and you're a little bit on edge on these cold calls because things come at you so quickly. You get random objections, random things people just say all the time in these cold calls. So you're going to want to be kind of a little bit more assertive when it comes to your tone, when it comes to how you handle objections. Basically, what I'm trying to say is you're going to want to position yourself as being the ultimate expert on cold leads. It's very, very important that you position yourself as an expert for age leads and for inbound leads, but especially with cold calling, you're going to want to sound like you're the absolute biggest expert on this stuff, or that you have like a good reason to basically call them, because that will basically do you guys wonders. The third thing is that you guys need to have a good reason for them to hop on that next closing call. So when it comes to cold leads, unlike age leads or inbound leads, where age leads and inbound leads, they basically expressed interest to basically getting solar. A cold lead is a complete stranger. So you basically have to take a complete stranger to hop on a call or on a next call with you to basically, want to buy solar. That can be a challenge. And the reason why it's a big challenge, and the reason why you guys probably right now aren't getting a lot of people to show on the next call, even if you do set them, is simply because they don't have a good reason to hop on that call and you haven't built enough value. So having a good reason to hop on the next call is simply all about value. It's the amount of value that you basically added on that call. So what is value? Value is literally just giving them a reason to hop on the call. And the reason why they're supposed to hop on that next call is to basically figure out if they can get approved, to basically solve their issues of high electric bills, if they can get approved to, get solar or, swap over their electric bills or anything. You guys need to build tons and tons of value on these cold calls for your customers to basically hop on that second call, or else they're simply just not going to hop on. They're just not going to put it to the top of their priority list. If something comes up, or half the time these people forget because you simply weren't memorable, they didn't have a good enough reason, and there wasn't even any like pain or value or anything on that call. So they literally just forgot about your appointment. So you need to build a lot of value in the sense that you need to dig into their problem. You need to talk about the electric rates going up. You need to make them understand that now is the best time to basically take action. And if they do it any time in the future, it's not going to be favorable for them. Now is the best time to do it. And they have a big problem with paying electric bills, high electric bills specifically. And on that next call, we're basically going to see if we can do something about it. We're going to see if we can fix your problem. That's what you basically need to do. You need to go in with that kind of mentality. For you basically need to go in with that mentality on these cold calls. So here's a couple of things you guys need to watch out for with cold calling. You need to watch out for energy drops. So you need to watch your energy levels. I genuinely don't think there's anyone on YouTube that talks about this. I haven't seen anyone talk about this. I've done tens of thousands of cold calls, and I can honestly tell you guys that watching your energy is one of the most important things. So what I mean by watching your energy is not so much your physical energy. It's more your mental energy on these cold calls. It can be very, very daunting to constantly deal with rejections over and over and over again, and you probably feel like you get to a certain number of calls, and in your mind you're kind of just thinking like, oh, what's the point? And then so what happens is you get someone that basically picks up, and you're kind of just going in half-assed with your energy, your tone, the amount of effort you put in, and that's actually having a negative effect on your results. And ironically, that will actually decrease your results, which will then decrease your motivation, and that will decrease your energy on the next call, and you just end up in this like exponential circle of going downwards and getting less results. When if you just maintain your, I guess, enthusiasm or your energy and your ability to, always see like the best in that cold call, in terms of like there's always the ability to get that person to basically hop on the next call or set an appointment, going with almost that enthusiastic mentality, you're going to do very, very well. Whereas if you just kind of go in and you're kind of just going with the, oh, like what's the point energy, this is like the 5th rejection of the day, the 10th rejection of the day. So then, the 100%, there's going to be 100% chance that the next person I talk to, they're going to, say that they're not interested. That is a very, very big trap to fall in with cold calling. And I don't see anyone really talking about that. You guys need to watch your energy levels and I guess your enthusiasm levels on these cold calls, and then constantly be cognizant and aware of what you're thinking in your head, because it can be very, very daunting to basically get these rejections. And if you keep taking the rejection, I guess personally, and you keep getting demotivated by it, you're just going to continue to basically lower your energy levels, lower your energy, and lower your enthusiasm. And even if someone might be interested on a cold call with you, your energy is just so low, you feel so defeated and so beaten that they're not going to like that kind of, I guess, sad energy that you're basically projecting on these cold calls, and they're just not going to want to hop on an appointment with you. So it's very, very important that you manage your energy levels on cold calls. A second bit is you need to find a good cold call lead source. So this is something that's important, but please, for the love of God, don't spend all of your time doing your research on where you find the best lead source for cold leads, because honestly, just find a source that has like decent leads. They're not going to scam you, because cold leads are cold leads. Cold leads are just strangers. So you can just find a list that has a bunch of names. It's going to be the same as another cold lead source. Cold leads at the end of the day are just strangers. Age leads and inbound leads are different in terms of how interested someone is, because they're not necessarily strangers to solar. But cold leads, they're just strangers, so it doesn't really matter. Just find someone who's reputable and who can basically give you guys cold leads. It takes time to master. This is the third thing here. It definitely takes time to master cold calling. So please don't be defeated by it in the beginning. If you see, or hear people on call, doing cold calling, and all of a sudden, they're getting a deal a week or 2 deals a week, and then you basically start hopping into solar sales, and you're not getting those results, and you might feel a little bit disheartened, a little bit defeated like that. I personally was, when I first started out, I was like, hey, I was expecting like at least a deal a week on these cold calls. And I first started out, and it took me like almost a month to get my first deal. But after that, after I got the experience and after I kept basically developing my skills, it then quickly became, a deal a week, and then, sometimes two deal a weeks when I was cold calling. And it basically just kind of compounded. So it very, very much takes time to master cold calling. And it takes time to master all the skills, how you speak, how you handle objections, your tonality, basically, managing your energy levels, understanding people, understanding yourself. That's stuff that basically takes a long time to master. And that's basically one of the big things about cold calling is it takes a lot of time to master. But once you master it, it's such an amazing skill because you can make so much money with it when you start cold calling. The fourth thing is you guys need to overcome this anxiety of cold calling. So this was something that I actually put in as the last thing here, and it almost popped in my mind. I was like, oh, like, yeah, that's a thing, cold calling anxiety. This was the biggest thing for me in the world. The biggest thing in the world for me in the beginning when I was cold calling was this anxiety, this like fear of hopping on these cold calls with these people. And now I don't have it whatsoever, to the point where I almost forgot about like putting it in. I put it in this presentation because it just like popped in my mind. I was like, yeah, that's something that people still experience because I've overcome it. It took me thousands of cold calls to overcome it, but now I'm at the point where I genuinely have zero anxiety on cold calling. I can say I have zero anxiety when I'm, talking to strangers on the phone. It's just something that you guys need to overcome. But when you guys overcome it, it will help you guys out so much because you're no longer putting a lot of your effort and energy into like being anxious and worried on these cold calls, and you can simply focus on just being the best, as salesman possible. That's basically why you guys need to overcome it, and you guys also need to overcome the anxiety of cold calling for other reasons. Self development. If you're anxious of cold calling, you're probably anxious of other things in social situations, and you overcoming, cold calling anxiety will help you guys out in that massively as well. So this is, cold leads, and I'm going to compare it to age leads. So age leads, they're a little bit more expensive than cold leads. They can actually be a lot more expensive than cold leads. So with age leads, if you guys don't know what an age lead is, an age lead is literally like it is the middle ground between a cold lead and an inbound lead. So an age lead is essentially an inbound lead, an old inbound lead. So an inbound lead from Facebook, for example, and maybe the age lead is 60 days or 100 days old or whatever. Basically, an age lead is an inbound lead. So someone who expressed interest in solar 60 days, 100 days, even a year ago. That's basically what an age lead is. Age leads can vary from, honestly, like, $1 a lead to even like, $20 or $10 a lead, depending on how new the lead actually is. So it's not like, like cold leads whatsoever, where you're almost getting leads for super dirt cheap or even for free if you get, the right cold lead source. Age leads can be a little bit more expensive. So I've also dabbled in age leads. Very much in the beginning, I was pretty heavy on age leads. So I can basically tell you guys the ins and outs, and I can kind of compare it to cold calling. So contrary to popular opinion, and I might get a lot of shit from some. So contrary to popular opinion, and I might get a lot of shit for this, but this is just my experience. In my opinion, I believe age leads are pretty overrated, unless you go pretty fresh in terms of, within 30 days, maybe 15 days in terms of, getting that age lead. And I'm going to be completely honest, anything above 60 days. So if they filled out a form more than 60 days ago and you buy that age lead, in my opinion, it's honestly just a cold lead. Like it's a little bit of a better cold lead, but it's not anything better, like better than cold leads. I'll basically go into the reason why, and I'll also go into the best approach when you go into age leads. But I'm going to be completely honest. If I'm a beginner, I would very much start off with cold leads. If you have a little bit of money to spend and you do want to basically, get up to the next level, you can obviously, I'm not going to stop you, go for age leads. But there's a couple of problems with age leads that I've actually found, and I can get to those in a second. So you do need to have the same tone as cold calling. So when it comes to age leads, I find a lot of people think that an age lead is just like it's an inbound lead on discount. So it's basically just an inbound lead, so they can go with the same inbound approach and it's just an inbound lead, and it's just a cheaper inbound lead because they filled it out, and they're still interested in solar, and they still have solar in their mind, and that's the only thing that they want. The truth is, a lot of people are very, very forgetful. I go as far as to say, if we did an exercise right now, and I told you, what was the last thing that you looked at on Instagram, or the last thing you looked at on Facebook, you will have no idea. And then these people here are filling out forms probably all the time, and if they filled out a form 60 days ago, chances are they don't exactly remember that they filled out something looking into solar. So you guys need to still go in with the same approach as cold calling. You guys can try and go in with the same approach as inbound leads, where you literally mention solar because they've expressed interest in solar. But I'm going to be honest, that does not go down very, very well in 99% of cases. So you still need to go in with the cold calling approach, the non-solar approach. You still need to be very assertive on these calls, and you still need to have a good reason for them to hop on that closing call. So don't think for a second that just because they expressed interest in solar 60 days ago or 30 days ago, that they're still, 100% interested, and they absolutely want what you have to say. They still need a good reason to hop on that closing call. And like I said, it's value. You need to build that value. You still need to build the exact same amount of value as you do on cold calls. And it can be a little bit more solar heavy and solar focused in your pitch. So instead of going like a complete solar approach where you literally don't even mention solar at all on your cold call, you can drop solar here and there, and ask them if they've looked into it, or talk about their experience with solar, or if they've looked into any programs in the past. You guys can do that simply because they have expressed some interest in solar a month or 2 months ago. But I would not go in with age leads and then just blast and be like, hey, you filled out a form looking into solar, 63 days ago on the 14th of January or something like that. Because no one remembers these days. It's just the fact. Everyone has a shitty attention span, and people just forget stuff. So that's just my opinion. And then, like I said, you guys honestly need to buy age leads within 60 days to get pretty solid results. By solid results, I just mean the results you think that age leads essentially give you, like slightly better results in cold leads in terms of your metrics, in terms of the amount of appointments you can book. You guys need to be basically buying fresher age leads. I bought thousands and thousands of age leads. I found that once they get above the 60-day mark, they kind of honestly just turn into cold leads. And if your approach is the same, either way, you might as well just go cold leads and save yourself some money. That's just what I found. So, like I said, people forget age leads are not exactly a magic pill. It's not just because, they were an inbound lead at one point, you can treat them as such. And then it also takes a lot of time to master. So there's a slightly different approach you need to take from both cold calling and inbounds. And for example, if they filled out a form 10 days ago or 7 days ago, there's a different approach you basically need to take to someone that filled out a form 100 days ago. You basically need to, adjust the level of how much you talk about solar, and, how aggressive you are with their problems and all that stuff. It takes practice, and it also takes a little bit of time to master to kind of figure out this stuff. Once again, you still need to overcome your anxiety of cold calling, and you're not going to call as many people as cold calling. That's one thing that's worth noting as well, is because of the amount that age leads costs, chances are you're not going to basically call as many people with cold calling simply because of the amount of money it costs. If you're going to match one-to-one, for example, if you're going to buy a list of, let's say you want to buy a list of 1,000 cold leads, and it's going to cost you $100 if you buy a decent list of 1,000 cold leads. And for age leads, if you want to buy 1,000 age leads, well, then it might cost you $1,000, or it might even cost you $5,000 for like a list of 1,000 age leads. So unless you have $5,000 to spend, or even $10,000 to spend on age leads, I'd recommend going with cold leads, and you can get those reps in, and you can keep working with yourself, keep working with your sales ability and sales skills. That's something that I would do, especially when you're starting out, because it's very, very important to, in my opinion, kind of start out with the cheaper stuff to kind of get those awkward moments out of the way, because you're going to get a lot of stutters, a lot of pauses on when you first start out cold calling. So you might as well stutter and pause on a lead that costs you absolutely nothing almost, as opposed to every single time you stutter or you fuck up, it's costing you $1, it's costing you $5, and you make hundreds of those fuck ups. It's going to cost you a lot of money. So that's one thing you guys need to take into consideration as well. So finally, let's get to inbound leads. So inbound leads. So I've dealt with a fair amount of inbound leads, anywhere from about $136,000 plus just worth of inbound leads is what I've basically called and kind of set appointments with. But I can kind of tell you guys the ins and outs of inbound leads and what you guys kind of need to take into consideration as well. So inbound leads, in my opinion, can be an absolute cash printing machine if you know what to do. If you don't know what you're doing, it will be an absolute money stealing machine. It will steal your money because you have absolutely no idea what you're basically doing. So it can be very, very good and very bad if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, which is why I always recommend starting with cold leads, because it will help you guys build that foundation, build the understanding of solar, build the understanding of the product you're selling. If you go straight to inbounds, you're probably going to have a bit of a hard time kind of understanding what to basically do, because there's a very, very different approach that you need to have. And there's honestly so many different approaches you can have when it comes to inbounds. You can go almost the cold calling approach on inbounds, and that can work. And you can go a super relaxed, super laid back approach on inbounds. And if you do it right, that can also work as well. So there's a ton of ways you can basically handle inbound leads that I've basically found. So when it comes to inbounds, it is a lot more solar focused. So there's still, the idea of, building a problem, and there's still the idea of, talking about their electric bills and their bills going up. But it's a lot more solar focused, simply because people have filled out the form, they know exactly what they're getting themselves into. The second bit is you need to differentiate yourself from other companies. So when it comes to inbounds, you need to differentiate yourself from other companies. I think that sounds pretty obvious, but you very, very much need to do it. And you need to differentiate yourself from other companies, and you need to differentiate the product you have from everybody else. So you're not just differentiating from other companies and saying, oh, we're the best, we're, this, we're that. But the product we actually have, the solar product we actually have, is different from anyone else because we do X, Y, Z. Basically, you need to go in with that approach as well. The reason why is because a lot of people filling out inbound forms have filled out inbound forms with other companies. And if they don't have a good reason to go with, you or the other company, they're not going to kind of make a decision. So the third bit is it's not for beginners. You can try, you can try hopping into inbounds, but trust me, it is not for beginners. That's just my personal opinion. I would start out with cold calling, like I've said like 20 times. The fourth bit is to make good money, you have to have good systems in place. So unlike cold calling, where you just need basically a dialer or a phone and then leads, when it comes to inbounds, you need to have a lot of things in place. You need to have, first of all, a good CRM. You need to have a lead source. You need to have a way to generate the leads. You need to have an ad copy. You need to have, someone that manages the ads if you're not doing that yourself. Then you also need a way to integrate the leads from, for example, Facebook, to integrate them into your CRM so you can get them instantly. And then you need to set up like notifications on your phone so that when leads come in, you can call them right. And then you need to set up all these processes. It is honestly a headache to set up. So we had like there was a time where my business partner and I, we had a full-time account manager just to deal with, just the back end stuff with inbound leads. It was that big of a pain that literally we just hired someone to basically help us out with all this stuff, because it was a nightmare to basically, set up these Zapier integrations and go high level and all this shit. So that's one thing to take into consideration as well when it comes to inbound leads. You need to have good processes in place, and good processes are going to cost you money. It's going to cost you a couple $100 to even get the most basic of systems when it comes to inbounds. You need a good CRM. You need a great, ads, integrations, all this stuff. It can definitely cost you guys quite a bit of money if you don't have that stuff. So let's get into some tips when it comes to inbound leads. You guys need to find a sustainable way to generate leads. Sustainable meaning you guys need to basically have a sustainable method of generating a consistent flow of leads. So let's say, for example, you're advertising on Facebook. You need to basically make sure, you have a good Facebook ad account that's in good standing. So one day you're not going to randomly get banned, and then all of your leads get taken away from you, and you're not going to basically have the ability to get a flow of leads. You need to make sure you have a good ad account in good standing. And then you also need to make sure that you have a sustainable ad copy, that it's basically giving you good results, consistent results, and the results that you want. So your ad copy can't be some crazy, wacky shit where you're getting like the cheapest leads and it's just people thinking they're going to get free solar plus $1,000 and like all this crazy stuff. It needs to be a sustainable way to basically generate leads. And to generate leads that are pretty decent quality. So they basically know what they're getting themselves into. They know it's solar, and they basically know, that there's incentives and stuff. They basically know what they're getting themselves into. That's pretty important. The second thing is you guys need to make sure that your pitch and ad work together. My business partner, we were basically running ads over Facebook. We were getting absolutely like dirt cheap leads on Facebook. And the reason why was because the form people were basically filling out, they thought it was one thing, and when it came to our pitch, they thought it was another. They still understood it was solar, but they thought that the solar was something else, or it was kind of a different thing we were offering. So then what eventually happened was we were getting a lot of cheap leads, and we were getting a lot of leads, but then in terms of our like conversion rate and in terms of our cost of acquisition, it was almost identical, if not a little bit higher than what we had before when we were running like very, very much solar focused advertisements, where we were getting less leads and the leads were more expensive. But it was simply because our pitch and our ads worked together so well, because we basically knew that they knew it was solar and they knew what they were getting themselves into. And our pitch basically grabbed them in and did all the right things and hit all the right notes. So when we used the same pitch that we used before and we changed up the ads to something that was, they thought that they were getting themselves into something different, like a different kind of solar program or something, it was just not working as well. So you guys need to make sure that your pitch and your ads basically work together. This stuff takes a lot of practice. It takes the ability to kind of be aware of sales and everything in general, which is why I say start up with cold calling, so you guys can kind of understand the basics of sales and understand why it's so important to say certain things. Another thing is when it comes to getting people on that second closing call, you'll get a lot more people to get on that second closing call. I'd go as far as to say on inbounds, if you're hitting the right metrics, you can get half of the people, maybe even more, 50% of everyone that you hop on the phone with initially will hop on that second closing call, which is very, very high compared to, for example, cold calling. If you're starting out, cold calling might be 30% or 20% if you're pretty decent. So you're not going to get as high of a closing percentage when it comes to inbounds, which is pretty surprising, which is what a lot of people might think. They think you get these inbounds, you're going to get a much higher closing percentage because there's more people that's interested. The truth is you really just get more closes and more deals simply because you have more leads and more people that have expressed interest. Not necessarily because you just get a high closing percentage, if that makes any sense. And the reason why is because you get a lot of shoppers. You get a lot of shoppers on these inbounds simply because people that are filling out one form have already filled out 5 other forms, which means that they're just going to you to kind of figure out what you have to offer. And they're going to all the other companies to kind of figure out what they have to offer, so that at the end of the day, they can kind of, compare and see like who is the best quotes and like who's all this stuff. Which is why it's very, very important to tailor your pitch in a way where you're not just saying, yep, our quote is XYZ, let me know what you think, and compare with other companies, because you're going to end up just being basically like a website where people can kind of just go to shop. And that's not really sales, in my opinion. That's just order taking and like setting up a website, which is kind of just the opposite of sales. And you're not going to get like nearly as good of results as you could if you kind of do this stuff. Another thing that's not on here, I know a lot of people basically talk about when it comes to inbound leads, is you need to make sure that the customer understands truly, truly, truly what you're selling, that, there's no money up front required, and that it's just going to save them money. And, there's incentives that are available to basically, take care of the upfront costs. Because like I said, there's a lot of shoppers, and shoppers have basically spoken to maybe 4 or 5 other companies in the past. A lot of solar companies, a lot of solar salespeople are shit at selling, which essentially means that they have gotten 4 to 5 different stories, 4 to 5 different ways that solar works. So when they come to you, there's a good chance that the way that the other 5 companies explain solar to them, they think in their mind it's going to cost them money, it's going to be this whole crazy thing. So when they're coming to you, and you think and you just assume that, oh, well, they're interested in solar, which means that they know everything about solar, they know about all the incentives, they know that it's, they can basically save money, they know that it's not going to cost them anything up front, and you just go in and say, yeah, so here's the amount it's going to cost you. Well, then you fucked up, because they might not even know that. The other 4 or 5 companies that they spoke to could have told them the most crazy, outlandish BS. Told them that solar is going to cost them 100K up front, and that they need to take out a loan like right now to pay up all the upfront money. You don't know what the other companies have basically told them, so you need to go in and basically like almost brainwash them, erase their mind, and say, I don't know what anyone else told you. Here's what we have to offer, and here is basically, the truth. Like, here's genuinely what solar is about. I don't know what anyone else told you about solar. This is what we have to offer. ABC. That's the best way to go about it, in my opinion. You need to basically undo all the BS that they've learned in the past from other companies, from googling online and doing all this crazy stuff. So that's one thing you guys need to take into consideration. Another thing is, in my opinion, you don't need to be as aggressive when it comes to that problem. I know a lot of people would disagree on this. This is just what I've seen. So when it comes to cold calling and inbound leads, when it comes to the problem, like basically the problem meaning their high electric bills, you don't need to do like bill shock, is what we basically call it. Is you don't need to talk so much and go so aggressive and be so I guess outlandish in terms of how you react to their problems, and how you basically talk about their problems and their electric bills going up. For example, if a customer on a cold call says they're paying $400 for electricity, you want to go ape shit. You want to basically go like, oh my god, that's crazy, $400, like, you guys like doing anything to keep your bills down, like do all this crazy stuff. You're gonna want to make a big deal out of it on a cold call. When it comes to an inbound lead, you're gonna want to tune it down a bit. There's multiple reasons for this. I find that with inbounds, they kind of already realized and done the heavy lifting themselves for you, in realizing that they have a problem, which is why they filled out the form in the first place. Is because they realize that they have a problem, so they need to get their electric down, and they've kind of done that work for you by filling out the form saying, yes, I'm interested in getting my electric bills down. You don't need to make them realize that they need to do it. They've already done it for you. Another thing is, if you go in really, really intense and really aggressively with the problem on these inbounds, I find that it actually turns a lot of people off. So what we actually found was, in the beginning, when we kind of transitioned from cold calling to doing inbounds, we kind of had this the same approach in terms of the problem and the intensity, that we were basically like almost overreacting to their problems and their high electric bills. And we found a lot of people were kind of confused and a little bit like turned off by it. And I think that we actually had a lower show rate on these appointments, and then we stopped basically doing it, and we actually got a higher show rate to these the second appointment. And I think the reason why was because people didn't feel it was genuine, because they kind of realized that they had a problem themselves, which is why they were going to you. So you making an even bigger deal out of that problem was kind of like, why are you doing this, man? Like, I realize I have a problem, I just want you to kind of fix it. That's why I fill out the form. You don't need to do this whole crazy thing, this whole crazy sales pitch for me. And when we actually kind of got rid of that and like tuned it down like 50%, we got better results. So that's one thing you guys need to keep in mind as well. So that is the difference between cold leads, AGs, inbound leads, how to handle each lead type, the pros, the cons, the differences between all of them. What is the best lead type to start with? You guys kind of know the answer, in my opinion. It's cold leads. With that being said, there is, I guess, like a path of progression. You can make a lot of money in all these lead types, cold leads, AG leads, inbounds, but you are going to make the most money if you kind of build up. You start at level, this is level 1, this is level 50, and this is level 100. You want to get to level 100, and you kind of want to make that progression. And when you do make the progression, starting from cold leads to AGs to inbound leads, you're going to make a lot of money with the inbound leads if you decide to stick with that stuff, simply because you have, fully gone the path, you fully built yourself up to that level, basically. So I hope that this video kind of made some sense. I'm going to make a ton of other videos that you guys basically have requested, because I know I've been getting like a shit ton of people reaching out, requesting different YouTube videos. This video was actually requested by someone, which is why I made it. So if you guys have any suggestions, any videos you guys want me to make, put that in the comments below. I have a ton of videos that I've already made. I'm just waiting to upload them. So yeah, with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.